A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000 for the next hour, or text the show at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. You text it like you would anything else. It appears on the screen here in studio in real time. We try to work it into the conversation.
Ooh, that's cool.
It is pretty cool, actually. You can email Text Joe on the Radio at gmail.com. It also appears in the same thing. We don't really tout that quite as much. But we do stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app like thousands of other stations do. So if you don't have the app, it's seconds to download it. Punch in WCRN. You'll see our cool logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We know you're there. And, of course, we're easy to find after that. And this show is streamed to the station's Facebook page and YouTube channel. It's also streamed to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. So that's Facebook, X, Twitch TV, and LinkedIn profile. And we do stream live to Rumble. So multiple ways to watch, multiple ways to listen. The show's also turned into a podcast and then distributed when I get off the air, so you can subscribe to the show like you would any other podcast, whether it's Spotify, Google Play, iHeartMedia, TuneIn, etc. So that takes care of a lot of the housekeeping today. Behind the glass flying the board today, he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation at 508-871-7000. Donald Trump, he's gigging. I was watching him right up into the last second here, coming into the studio outside the Rose Garden, where he'll be having a dinner. He's talking about, of course, the ballroom that he is paying for with help of contributors. No tax money is involved in building.
Did you hear
the
his comments on zoning?
No.
He said, I'm so used to having to deal with zoning and laws and regulations. And the attorneys came to me and said, Mr. President, you're the president. There's no zoning.
I wonder how that works with the White House. You can, because presidents have done things over the years. He actually took a second. I don't know if you caught this one, but outside the Rose Garden, there was the wall, and now they have the walk of the presidents there and the half windows. But on the other side is where the pool used to be, and I think that's where the media room is now. And he told the story about Jacqueline Kennedy. He used to pass the pool and say, wait a minute, I hear females in there. I hear women in there in the Secret Service. There's no women in there. Madam First Lady, you're going to move on. There's no ladies in there. And he made reference to being in a movie. But anyway, he's out there gigging. If you caught any of that's great to do. Now, I wasn't in yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you about the No Kings protest over the weekend, and many of you have seen the headlines, right? The so-called No Kings protest sweeping across America. Organizers are claiming, and I'm quoting here, 7 million people took to the streets to oppose authoritarianism. 7 million. I don't buy it up front, so I'll tell you that. And No Kings. Well, in the backdrop, by the way, Carney there is in Canada, publicly taking the oath in allegiance he's swearing to King Charles, his heirs, and so forth. But folks, let's pause it for a second here, because that number is about as believable as a DC politician promising term limits.
Joe, one of the investigative journalists, and I call him that honestly, checked out the IDs on the photos that were used on air, and they are not from the time frame of the event.
Yeah, there's a lot of yes. There was the CNN, or excuse me, MSNBC. I'm going to talk about that using footage that was from 2017. Then it's being debunked, but that number isn't very believable. No independent outlet, no law enforcement agency, no satellite or aerial surveyor supports anything even remotely close to that figure. But the corporate media ran with it because it sounded good. It felt right. And that's the new standard for truth these days. If it fits the narrative, we'll run with it. It's good to go. So let's talk about some of the specifics. Again, in Boston, drone footage and traffic data put the crowd somewhere around 100,000. Now, that's a big rally. Don't get me wrong. That is a big rally. But when you inflate that into millions, you're no longer reporting, you're performing at that point. Then, of course, MSNBC stepped right into it, and people online pointed out that their footage looked suspiciously familiar, maybe even recycled from a 2017 protest. Well, before you know it, of course, they say fact checkers said, okay, that's not true. All right, PolitiFact and NBC owns local stations came out later, said, no, it was this weekend's footage. Fine. But you know what? Here's the point there. When your credibility is so shot, you have no trust. People don't believe you. Even when you are telling the truth, people don't believe you. I said this. The ship has sailed on the mainstream media. Nobody can trust anything you see on that. And that's how far trust in our media has actually fallen. They've spent years gaslighting the public, from Russian collusion to laptop disinformation to safe and effective, or you're banned. So when they suddenly demand we trust the footage, the public laughs at that, rightly so.
How many times can you scream wolf?
That's it. The boy who cried wolf. It's just too many times, and too many times have they been proven wrong. And now there are going to be some consequences because there are some, roosters coming home type thing. You've got criminal elements to this. You've got Comey indicted for lying under oath, committing perjury. Bolton. Talk about, let's play back his comments when they raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago and about documents, classified documents being out there and so forth. And Bolton, all kinds of classified information floating around.
Without any authority.
Without, right. And that's the thing you got to remember, including when they went out, when Joe Biden, it was an issue with Joe Biden before he was president. He had all those classified documents, in the garage, next to the Corvette, in the house.
Without any authority.
Exactly. He took those classified information out of the skiff, out of Congress while he was a senator, not the president. This was prior to becoming president. And I go back to, since there is no official mechanism for the president of the United States to declassify information other than declaring it declassified, the very act of Trump taking it out of the White House, would that not de facto be declassified? One could argue that. I do. But let's get to the slogan, right? No kings. It's catchy. I'll give him that. But it's also ironic to the point of comedic. These protests were organized primarily by the same political machine that has spent the last decade behaving exactly like royalty. You don't get to cry no kings while installing a president, Kamala Harris, without a single competitive primary vote. They really expected that they would anoint her. A lot of it had to do with transferring all the $100 million in the campaign fund. They also didn't want to chance putting out a primary and her losing the primary. So there was not a single competitive primary vote. Now, I know they're going to argue, well, we voted, within the party and so forth. But there was no primary. Members of the Democratic Party did not have an opportunity to go to the polls and select their candidate. And you don't get to scream democracy while shutting down opposing voices online, threatening journalists, or using federal agencies to pressure social media companies into shadow banning Americans who dared to question the so-called science. Often it was the same scientists, people with the same degrees and same diplomas from the same institutions who are saying, wait a minute, but because they didn't go with that narrative, they were banned. The irony of that is it pushed a lot of them onto the outside where then they came together and now they're being heard. So that's not democracy. That's a decree, folks. And if nothing says king or queen or royalty or monarchy, then a decree. And it's not limited to the White House. Look how governors and attorney generals and bureaucrats operate. Mandates, censorship, executive orders. It's the modern version of royal proclamation, right? The only thing missing is a crown and scepter. And let's talk about, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think they got, although it is a catchy name, I think they got it wrong. What they're really protesting is the nation swinging to the right. So It should be no swings.
Yeah, no swings would be more apropos, actually. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what's really being protested here. It's the misuse of power. That's a legitimate concern. Every American, left or right, should oppose unchecked authority. But we have to ask, who's actually wielding that power today? Let's be honest. It isn't the truck driver in Ohio or the small business owner in Worcester. It's not the average citizen. It's the political class, the bureaucratic elite, the unelected technocrats who think they know better than you on how to live your life. The founders designed a republic, not a monarchy, not a mob, the rule of law, limited government, separation of powers. Now, those weren't suggestions. They were safeguards against exactly what we're seeing, an entrenched class that ignores the people we're pretending to speak for them. And what makes it worse, they wrap it in a moral language. We're protecting democracy, they say, while trampling the very foundations of it. So the next time you hear political chanting no kings, ask yourself, who's acting more like royalty, the citizen who wants government transparency or the official who ignores laws, defies ballot mandates, and silences dissent? All right, folks, we have to take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 2 seconds. Stick with us.
I'm Lee Gaudette from Gaudette Insurance and the Gaudette Insurance Show. You're listening to Radio Central, AM 830 WCRN.
Are you looking for a holistic approach to your health? One that supports your body's natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal? Look no further. The Bioregulatory Medical Institute, BRMI, a nonprofit global organization dedicated to advancing the science and art of bioregulatory medicine, welcomes you to their free and rich library of resources. You'll find articles, podcasts, videos, and more at brmi.online. BRMI believes health freedom is a basic human right, honoring medical ethics and the innate intelligence of the human body. When your body is properly supported, it will thrive. If you're looking for the root cause of illness, physical, emotional, or spiritual, visit brmi.online. brmi.online.
Fresh and familiar New England hits, evenings at 8 on Radio Central WCRN.
We invite you to listen each weekend to the Voice of Truth broadcast with Pastor L.R. Shelton.
My friend, that is declaring yourself before God. You'll keep repeating over and over again what you are, what God has showed you.
That's the Voice of Truth broadcast each weekend on this station.
And I need the best cuisine for an event. My answer, Ziti. For that special catered event in your home, at church, the temple, or a meeting house, Ziti's Restaurante, Speedway Plaza in Westboro. Ziti.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. Let's jump to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
I was listening a couple. Oh, it might have been last night before. What is it? WABC out of New York City.
That's one of them. It's a big one. Yeah.
No swearing on the air, Mark.
Sorry, sir. It won't happen again. Anyway,
three-letter words will get you every time.
I hear you, man. Especially the four-letter ones that start with a W. So, anyways, this guy calls up, right? And the moderator's talking like you're, doing this thing. And this guy calls up and he said that Zelensky was saying to Trump, "I want tomahawks. I want tomahawks," like a little kid, right? Over and over again, right? And then the guy called in and said that Trump didn't give them to him. He wanted them bad, but Trump said, "No, man, you ain't getting no tomahawks." So this guy called in. He's like 20-something year, retired, recent military, and he said those tomahawk. I didn't know this. Those Tomahawk missiles can be fitted with nuclear warheads. Yes. And that's what he was clamoring for. And thank God we got Trump and not a knucklehead in the White House. And he said, "No, man, you ain't getting no Tomahawks that can be fitted with nuclear warheads. No, you ain't getting them."
And he also...
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Mark, the reason Zelensky wanted them is because the range, those can reach Moscow. And he wants to reach deep into Russia, and that's why.
What a tactical nuclear weapon.
That's even a notch higher. Yeah, that's worse. Yeah, no, it's not going to happen. Look, Trump wants to end this thing. He doesn't want to escalate this thing, and he's told him. And thank you for the call, Mark. Always appreciate it. And he's telling Zelensky, you gotta compromise here. This is going to happen. 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers are being killed every week, and this is where Trump's at. Now, I know that the military-industrial complex in there, whether you get into all the Rothschilds and this and that, and who's funding all these wars, and they don't want it to end. But you got a guy in there who not beholding to any special interest groups, who has told them over and over again no, and he wants the war to stop because war is hell and people are dying. Thousands of people are dying a week, and he wants the killing to end. It's that simple. And he's going to, he's going to use the pressures, the tools in the toolbox. He's going to use what he can with Putin, and he's already done this in a lot of ways. Again, outside the box, not with military threats, mostly economic threats and action. First of all, by telling a lot of these nations to stop buying his oil. Just stop it. And even to the point of telling them, if you buy oil from Putin, you can't buy anything from the United States. I'm going to put 150, 200% tariffs on you. That's the other thing, the side thing. I wasn't preparing to talk about this, but the court has picked this up about whether or not the president, again, I'm always worried to see the lower courts look at this stuff and they put Trump in there, not the presidency. These lower courts are thinking we're going to stop Trump, as if they don't even realize that whatever orders they issue, because they want to stop Trump from basically being successful. Look, he has used the tariffs very skillfully to bring 8 conflicts to resolution, and often credited with tariffs to do it, and hopefully a 9th. Yeah.
Can I give a historical reference here?
Sure.
Because it's significant. Before there was gunboat diplomacy, before there was intervention by the CIA, before there was military invention or invasion, or let's call it a police action. There was this thing called tariffs that kept foreign operators or bad operators in line.
Mhm.
And he's just using what he has, as you said,
In the
in
toolbox.
arsenal.
Yeah. You know, what? Blame whoever it was that pointed history out to Trump that we didn't have income tax and that all of our revenue came from tariffs in the 1800s and we were the richest country around at the time. Whoever pointed that out, you opened a monster there. But the point is, he has used the tariffs very skillfully to end a lot of this stuff. But this No Kings protest, again, 7 million participants across 2,700 events in all 50 states. I'm not buying the 7 million. I don't. The accusation of using old video, yeah, they were coming out and debunking that, but there are timestamps on this stuff. You should be able to figure this out definitively, I would think. So what are you going to do there? Look, the language of No Kings taps deeply into anti-authoritarian sentiment, doesn't it? Especially in the constitutionalist worldview, a rallying cry against perceived overreach. But isn't the modus operandi, the MO from the progressive left is always perceived? Oh, it's perceived, it's feelings, it's in their mind, it's in their head. They've got these narratives. And they'll still continue to fight against any single brick being taken out of that perceived threat that they have. Because if they take one brick out and they're wrong about something, if they admit that they're wrong, KJP is out touting her book. She's out there touting the book, and she's doubling down that Joe Biden was fine. But she does get vague when she talks about, the same thing that happens to old people, happened there. But still maintains he was sharp as a tack.
Hey,
She didn't see any
bovine
of this.
excrement smells,
And
what she's saying has a certain odor to it.
it does. But she's in that trap. Right? She cannot, if she gives up on any of this, then everything she was saying the entire time behind the podium, in post-podium, is a lie. And she knew that he had deteriorated to that degree. So she can't. And she's out there promoting this book and doubling down on it. But these protests, without precise policy roadmaps, they risk being symbolic rather than substantive. There is no substance to it.
Joe, why are you still calling them protests? These are riots. People are not peacefully.
Not all of them. During the day, they picked up something. They started wearing these inflatable costumes. Now, you don't know what the hell's under the inflatable costume, but you notice this? They're running around dressed up in like pink things and dinosaurs or whatever. So it's very hard to say anything. But the thing is, you see Pritzker in Illinois, and he's talking about, no kings and this and that. And the media happily shows, the geriatric. I mean, these were, right? This was the other thing. The average age of these protests this weekend, they were older people, much older people. They
White
were younger
hippies.
people. They were young, yeah. Aged hippies, I guess.
Aged, yeah.
All right.
Old white hippies.
And that was the other thing. A lot of white faces. A lot of white faces. I did not see a lot of diversity in the footage I saw of the coverage of this. I don't know about you. Very little diversity in the crowd.
Angry white faces.
And angry white, a lot of angry white liberal women. But the backdrop, so you see this, what the media doesn't show you is when the sun goes down, it was dark in Chicago, and that's when the violence was coming out. That's where arrests are being made. And we're going to get into the whole ICE thing in a second. But what does no king in practice means? Greater checks. Reigning in executive authority, more transparency. Speaking of transparency, we're going to talk a little bit about Massachusetts. But this protest underscores a wider tension, right? Who controls the narrative? Media, social platforms. Many of the demonstrators cite shadow banning, suppression of dissenting posts during pandemic, or pressure on platforms to censor voices. Now, I saw a lot of American flags, which is a change, right? Usually, the American flag to this group was oppressive and triggering. I mean, those aren't my words. These are the words that they
Often
were
on
using.
fire.
And often on fire. True. I saw a lot of them out there. So either they don't understand that what they're putting on their signs versus what they vote for is in direct conflict, or somebody said to them, you got to embrace this, embrace America, and do this. Because a lot of these people, I look at the New York one, that are out there talking about no kings and what their signage was saying, is about to, in a couple of weeks, go vote for a communist for mayor. So again, who are you? Are you what your sign says and what you're saying, or are you how you vote? And I couldn't figure out how to grab it up, but it's on my Facebook. You know, the Family Guy put up a great little thing about Peter at the protest yelling, and the person on the megaphone saying, "What are you here for? We don't know." What do you want? We don't know. Why are you here? Because we got forwarded an email that told us to come. That's basically it. Because time and time again, you see that interview of the citizen journalists walking up to these people that are often dressed kind of uniquely and saying, why are you here? I know I'm against fascism. Okay, what is fascism? They don't have a definition for it. They really don't. They don't know why they're there. And then we're going to take a break.
Joe, I think they know why they're there. They're there because they got paid to be there.
Well, there's a lot of them have. We'll talk a little bit about that because hundreds of millions of dollars have been traced back to a lot of the elites, whether it's Soros and the others. We can go over that in a minute, but we have to take our mid-show break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. Don't forget, we're streaming on my social media platforms. We'll be back in two, folks. Stick with us.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Tucker Antico, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. A beautiful Tuesday ahead here. Temperatures already begun quite mild. They're going to stay mild this afternoon as we reach the low and mid-60s. While it is dry today, expect more rain to return tomorrow, mainly in the morning from 4 to 10 a.m. Could even be an isolated storm, though will not be quite as rainy as we saw Monday. Slowing down the AM commute, some of those showers before clearing and cooling in the afternoon. I'm meteorologist Tucker Antico, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Information central to your day from Radio Central, 830 WCRN.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. 1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, we are streaming live to my social media platforms, or you can go to the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, Joe Mangi Show, X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and, of course, Rumble. 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently through the break. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. I got a little follow-up. You were talking about the blow-up animals. And you know what's inside the blow-up animals? They're all in people.
Yeah.
You know where it started? It started in Portland like 2-3 months ago. I've been watching T-STLI. He's terrific. And so I've been seeing these blow-ups for quite some time. And I guess the people has figured out it's a good decoy.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it all over the country.
Because you don't know what's under there.
Well, and here's the kicker. One of them I saw, somebody gets smart. So, you know, you have to have a vent valve on those.
Yeah,
things, right?
the little fan hole that they, yeah, and people are using. Yeah, go ahead. Tell everybody what they're doing.
Big stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then they play music to them running around.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, they're throwing, because you can get this like fart spray or something, or BS spray, and they're just shooting it in the vent, and then they're stuck in there with this horrific smell. And there's all kinds of stuff you could put in there. So yeah, so that's the drawback that they've got going on in that. I've seen that.
Yeah. They
Absolutely.
never think it all the way through.
Speaking of
All right.
which, I saw a protester attack another protester who was in a Trump suit. And the guy just attacked the guy thinking he was a Trumper.
And he was probably goofing on Trump with the suit, because they have that
right.
inflatable baby Trump with the diaper on that they have at
Yeah,
all the
that's the
stuff.
one.
Yeah. So, which, whatever, man. But yeah, this is the thing. I saw a lot of the inflatable. And again, Mark, I saw American flags. And you never used to see American flags at these things.
Well, there's counter. Did you hear the most effective counter demonstration at Portland at the ICE facility?
No.
Have been teenage boys that go out there, and they're only say about 15 kids, 17, 18, 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
And they're yelling, USA, USA.
Yeah.
They go silent.
Yeah.
It shuts them right up. The protesters.
I saw some of that with footage, and I think it was in South Carolina, so that the frat boys came out, and they were walking around with American flags and chanting USA, and they were kind of, I think they were taunting, hoping that one of these Antifas tried to take the flag away from the frat boys, which probably wouldn't have ended well. And there was some other video of the 1%ers. You know what I mean when I say 1%ers? The motorcycle 1%ers.
Oh.
So they showed up at some of these things, and they put hands on Antifa. They just punched them down. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying, okay, that's happening now.
Well,
so the counter protests could be more than they decided. I know they're out there. Who's the guy out there saying you gotta get the guns and shoot them? Conway or something like that. I mean, there's some pretty bad call to actions happening. Say again?
You saw the teacher pointing
Which-
at her neck?
No. What's this one?
Oh, you haven't seen that? Oh my God, that's the one that's the most popular. So somebody goes by with a big sign for Charlie Kirk, in memory, 90th freedom,
Oh,
2015.
I see where it's going.
Right?
Yeah.
And this big, large woman,
Large Marge.
very animated, starts shooting at her neck over and over and over again, taunting the Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what happened to her job? Oof.
Oh, and I think I read something. Okay, there was another one. There was a nurse who got an OUI in Texas, in Houston or someplace, and she's drunk, obviously OUI, but she tells the police if they've come in when she's on, she'll let them die. By the time she finished being booked, she had lost her nursing job at the hospital. Rightly so, in my opinion. But
have you figured out exactly why they did the whole so-called No Kings this past weekend?
this weekend, wasn't this originally planned as a Gaza thing?
Well,
I thought they shifted it.
There's a very simple explanation. So I see in one of these YouTube videos, a guy does a month-by-month breakdown on net registration nationwide, Republican versus Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning that, let's say the Republicans gained...
It's over 5 million net
Democrats
difference,
gained
yeah.
20, so on, right? So you
Mhm.
got a net count, right? So they had this chart going from November 24 through September of 25 with a net plus almost 1.4 million to the GOP advantage, except for 1 month where there was a small blue number. Guess what month that was?
No, probably
June.
June.
No Kings won. So they had to have a No Kings 2 because that's the only time that's actually doing okay in registration.
Okay.
Well, anybody running a business, you see a chart like that. Well, we got to do another one. Well, now I don't know what it's going to turn out in October, but
There'll be a max out at that anyway. And
you would think.
Yeah.
That'll tell them the message. If they get it read by the end of the month.
Well,
now
the
we're
problem again here is, I'm sorry, but I'm looking at how the progressive left typically votes. Then I'm looking at their signage and the messaging they're trying to send. And there's as if there's no self-awareness that everything they're trying to speak against are the people they voted for in the past and put into power have acted very monarchy. So again, what you vote for and what your signs are saying, they don't match up, people. So which is it? Who are you?
I know.
It's not going to be honest, Joe. So the bottom line is the voters have to recognize, no, I don't want Marxists. I don't like violence that they create. And if they put 2 and 2 together, they're going to get their tails handed to them.
All right. I didn't have this on my notes, but I'm very interested and curious about because it's the mayoral race in New York. So you've got Mandami killing it with the polls, and you got Andrew Cuomo, which was a disgrace as a governor, who was a Democrat, lost the primary, runs independent. So he's really 2 Democrats, but yet they want Curtis out, Sliwa out, because they say he's the spoiler. But technically, he's the Republican. Mandami's the Democrat. So it is really Cuomo who's the spoiler. And now Sliwa is saying that he's been offered a lot of money, millions, $10 million to get out of the race. Now, isn't the logical question, really? That's a lot of money for a guy who lives in a 700 square foot apartment with 19 cats. $10 million is a lot of money. And my question is, who offered you that?
That's a lot of kitty
And is
litter.
it cash? Is it in the form of a job? Stocks? I mean, how do they give you $10 million? How do they guarantee you drop out? Are they supposed to pay? Like, that's a lot of questions. Now he's threatening if anybody approaches him again, he's going to go see Bragg and charge for, election interference. So do you think, A, that's true? And who would want to spend that kind of money to get him out of the race?
Oh, it's definitely a potential truth. And it's obvious who it would come from would be some big financial interest who is like, we got to pull the plug and get this out of here.
Yeah, they don't want Mandami. Now the media on the MSNBC, CNN, they're trying to say, oh, no, but all these financial people talk. Of course they're talking to him because they're fairly intelligent people, these hedge fund people and, who make billions of dollars for people. And they're saying New York is stupid enough to elect this guy, right? They actually will. I mean, he was around the other day posing with and touting around this Iman who was a suspect in the 93 World Trade Center bombing. But I mean, the media ignores that part of it, and that they know that. So that yes, they're going to talk to him because they got to figure out how do we mitigate this guy as much as possible. Right? If he gets in there, he's already backed up.
Yeah.
Oh, he's backed off some of the things he said with the New York police. He said, "Well, I'm talking to each one of them and apologizing individually. But why don't you just apologize to the entire New York Police Department? You've called them racist. You've called them criminals, right? You wanted to defund them. Why not apologize en masse to them?"
Joe, he just met with a guy that was part of 9/11.
That's
That's how dumb New York City is.
Mm-hmm.
That's how lost they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the financial people have figured it out. And there's going to be a Miami Stock Exchange. There won't be no more New York Stock Exchange. That's gone. The money people will go to Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. They've already lost a tremendous amount, has shifted out of the state. People that can afford it and so forth. And it's going to become a California, right? The uber rich or the uber poor. Because in those states, if you have absolutely no money, then you get housing and food stamps and all this other stuff. But and if you're very wealthy, you can absorb it, and you still don't know, as Kardashian admitted the other day, she has no idea what a gallon of milk costs. Because if you don't do your shopping, if you don't do your cooking, if you don't do your driving, you're not filling up the car and you're not buying the groceries, you get where I'm going. So is that what New York is? I mean, that's what California has become and continues to head it. I mean, all you have to do is look at the U-Haul trucks leaving California. If you happen to be moving to California, you'll get a free U-Haul truck because they can't get them back to the state fast enough. Final thoughts, Ken?
Sanctuaries of carnage are three biggest cities: New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago.
Yeah, no argument here. All right, Ken, thank you for the call. Always appreciate it. All right, folks, we're going to come up to our third break. When we come back, though, I think we're going to talk a little bit about Massachusetts, some hypocrisy there, the statewide audit, 72 to 28%, despite it passing by a landslide. The governor refuses to abide the will of the voters, and Campbell AG refuses to enforce the law. But we have to take our third and final break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. We'll be back in 2 and 2, folks.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000-watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
Polar Park is the place to play, so treat yourself to a private suite at the best ballpark in AAA. Suite rentals are the best way to enjoy a fully catered and climate-controlled experience at the park. Whether you choose to watch the game from inside of the suite or out in your seats, it's the ultimate experience for a special occasion. Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to reserve your suite today.
Can you believe the chaos at our Worcester City Council meetings?
I know. I can't believe this is what our city council has become. So much chaos and drama. Not what I want for our city.
That's why I've been supporting Donna Colorio. She brings common sense to our city council. Donna cares about stop signs, public safety, the quality of life, the things people really care about.
Absolutely. I'm voting for Donna Clario, too. She always puts Worcester first.
I'm Donna Calorio, and I approve this message. I'm committed to putting Worcester first. Please vote on Tuesday, November 4th.
Well, that's right. We got city elections. Well, we got elections across the board coming up in a couple of weeks. I know they cover the Worcester elections a lot closer on the morning show with Hank. All right, 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available, 508-871-7000. Don't forget the show is turned into a podcast when I get off the air. So subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, whatever the case is. So you can go right to Podbean and be notified when the new episodes drops every day. Don't forget our text line is 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. So, you know, folks, there's a phrase we all learned early on, right? And I'm shifting here to the people spoken, Beacon Hill Shrugged. So we learned early on that government of the people, by the people, for the people. But here in Massachusetts, that's starting to sound more like government despite the people. Because back in November, 72% of Massachusetts voters, and that's nearly 3 out of every 4 guys, almost 75% here, said yes to auditing the legislature. They didn't whisper it, they shouted it. They said, we want accountability. They wanted to know where the money goes, how decisions are made, why Beacon Hill so often operates in the dark. But what happened next? The governor said no. The attorney general said, not my problem. In the very legislature the people voted to audit, they simply folded their arms and said, hey, you can't touch us. Nope. So these are the same people who lecture us about protecting democracy, the same crowd that screams no kings when it suits them, yet suddenly they're behaving like royalty themselves. No kings, fine.
It's rich, huh?
But apparently no queens either. It is. It's extremely. The hypocrisy is stunning. Here's the truth. If the people's will can be ignored this easily, we don't have self-government. We have self-appointed rulers. When 72% of citizens speak and the political class shrugs, that's not democracy. That is defiance. And it tells us something deeper. These so-called public servants don't fear losing our trust because they stopped earning it long ago.
It's tyranny.
It is. So if we unpack this a little bit, the law, the politics, the principle, because if Beacon Hill can ignore the will of the people in broad daylight, what else are they ignoring when no one's watching? Question 1, November of 2024, passed 72-28. Now that gave state auditor explicit authority to audit the legislature, its accounts, programs, activities, and functions. Since then, however, legislative leaders in the House and Senate have refused to comply. They're citing constitutional separation of powers. So they're saying constitutional concerns. The governor and attorney general, Andrea Campbell, well, they declined to enforce or litigate to compel. So they're allowing the legislature to do this. DiZiglio, right? Auditor Diane DiZiglio has publicly challenged A.G. Campbell to sue her office if more information is needed, and has even released internal correspondence showing back and forth between her team and the AG's office. But here's the thing about lawyers or people who are a little familiar with law and lawsuits. They often don't threaten to see you in court because the last thing they want is a lawsuit, because lawsuits mean depositions. Lawsuit means subpoena powers. Lawsuit means you have to answer questions under oath and tell the truth. And stuff comes out. Stuff always comes out in lawsuits that somebody didn't intend for it to ever be known.
It's called discovery.
Well, yes, discovery is what you have to turn over. But it's the fact that these depositions take place and they were under oath, and what you say in a deposition is admissible in court, and everything can be on the table. That's why DeZiglio is saying, then sue me. Because all of the emails, all of the correspondence, everything that has happened between the AG's office, the governor's office, the state legislature, leadership, etc., are all admissible and can be brought up in court, certainly in the depositions. So voters overwhelmingly, 72%, approved question 1 to bring Beacon Hill under the same audit scrutiny as every other state entity, a clear signal of public demand for this accountability. It wasn't 51-49. There's no gray area here. The legislature has maintained it is exempt. Talk about no kings. Exempt, claiming separation of powers.
This could only happen in a one-party state.
Only. Absolutely. Can only happen in a one-party state. And the AG, despite supporting the question in principle, is refusing to enforce or even litigate the issue. So if leaving the law unimplemented, it's having a law with no teeth. It's so what? It's like when I talk to you about the fact that when these states and cities declare themselves sanctuary, it's for their own benefit. It's to make them feel good or you know, for their base.
Has no effective law.
Exactly. You can't pick and choose federal laws you want to follow or adhere to. Now, you can make it difficult for the federal agents, but what happens? They come in. And I've talked about this, man. And one of these, and I'm gonna, if I have time, I'm gonna get into these ICE and the arrests, right? There's a lot of lies with this, but don't forget, Department of Homeland Security has reported more than 480 arrests of illegal immigrants in the first 9 months of 2025. Now, 7 in 10 individuals either convicted or of crimes or facing pending criminal charges. 70%. And a good portion of that 30%, now, yes, they are illegal, therefore they're criminal by the fact that they entered the country illegal. I get that. But the response to this, look, they didn't break anything else. They come in, they're not part of a gang. They didn't rape, they didn't murder, they didn't rob, they didn't carjack, yada, yada, yada. Most of those people are getting arrested as illegals because ICE had to go to the streets. They had to go to the workforce, right? The workplaces. They just did a thing at the Uber lot, right? Where they made 11 arrests because you have illegals who somehow get signed up and they're able to drive Uber, even though they're not legally in the country.
Better take the bus.
So they got 11 of them at a sting. Well, the thing is, if these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states did what they should be doing, and that is cooperating with federal law enforcement agency, then these people with these horrible crimes or facing these horrible charges could be turned over at the courthouse or at the jail. And ICE wouldn't have to be going into the street because, look, if you are illegal, the chances are you're living with other illegals. You dine with them, you live with them, you travel with them. That's the way human nature works. So a lot of these illegals are not that they've done another crime, a horrific crime. The fact that they're just associated and they're going to be in the same vicinity of someone who did do a horrible crime or is being accused of a horrible crime, and they're going to get scooped up. And they're going to be, for them, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Do you want to hire an Uber to take your daughter to the airport? And
if they've tricked Uber, if they've already tricked Uber into who they are, that doesn't say a lot for Uber guys. You would think Uber would be more diligent in their background and certification so that they're not on the receiving end of a class action suit at some point. But this whole thing with the state is disgusting because it was clear what we, the people, did and want. We did that with the driver's license for illegals too. Legislature ignored that and went on, right? But the Federalist did a very good article, and I'm against the clock, but I think I shared it on my Facebook page, but go check it out on the Federalist. Investigation, it outlines how Democrats and major media outlets have systematically demonized U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Border Patrol agents for political purposes. The piece documents instances of false reporting, manipulated narratives, selective outrage used to paint law enforcement officers as villains, even as they enforce duly passed immigration laws. So they're literally passing, or rather enforcing, the laws that Congress has passed. And then you actually have members of Congress who actually have the power to change the law getting arrested at ICE facilities. It argues that these attacks erode public trust in border security, compromise national sovereignty, and endanger communities by discouraging enforcement of immigration law. So if you have a chance, go check that out if you can. It's on the Federalist. It's a good article. I plan to talk about it, but we only are here for an hour on weekday afternoons at 1 o'clock, folks. So we're going to have to wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, folks, I always do stream to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. And don't forget, it is turned into a podcast. So when I get off the air, you'll be able to find it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those places. Subscribe on Podbean, and you'll be notified every time a new one drops. But that'll do it for me. Joe out, folks. Have a good remaining of your day.